Hello everybody, welcome back to the garage in Spain. My name's Gary. As I promised on the last video, I would start on the plaster of Paris on the hillside. I've started my very first section off camera, but have decided that now I'm happy with how this is going on. It's just starting to go quite solid now, quite set. I thought I'd go ahead, do the little end on here and then go on to a time lapse. So hopefully I will capture the whole of the hillside being put together. So I'm using a proprietary brand of plaster of Paris. Comes in small packs to keep it sealed, obviously, and to keep it from going hard in transit. I've had a little bit of an experiment this afternoon to see how best to use it, but I'm basically just taking out and approximate rolls of half the hillside and then cutting those into lengths with an ordinary pair of scissors, and then going from there and soaking. So I'll do the first couple in real time, and then I'm going to go on to a time lapse for the rest of the hillside. So it comes like this, probably about 10 centimeters wide. It comes in 3 meter rolls, and there's 6 in a pack in this particular one. So as you can see, it's about 50% holes, 50% plaster, and I find the easiest way, I just roll it through the water, hold it for a few seconds over the bowl to get to some of the drips, and then it's just a case of layering on. It looks a little bit wet at the moment, but it dries very, very quickly. And then once it's in position, just a careful smoothing of the plaster across the holes. Try not to be too regimented and too even, just allowing the natural line of the hillside take place and form. And obviously with the soft paper underneath, the masking tape just holding it in place, the water soon gets absorbed and the plaster soon starts to set. So you don't want to be hanging about too much, but at the same time you've got a little bit, as you can see, a little bit to play with. Don't worry about the weird shapes. As I said, Mother Nature isn't, I'm sure, perfect when she's designing. And then I just smooth over little areas, making sure that I go up the top to join to the piece beside. It's quite therapeutic, to be honest, in a strange way. So, as I say, I'm making sure I get lots of little ridges, lots of little pockets, and hopefully the contours will marry up. So I'm going to go ahead now, put the next piece on, and then I'm going to go into time lapse. I think at the moment I'll be looking at a second coat, possibly tomorrow. I want to let this dry fully to take up the basic shape. But as you can see, it tends to almost like a vacuum into the actual paper, where it just slightly dissolves a little bit, and the paper has a little bit of rigidity and soaks up the moisture, and the plaster starts to harden. This piece up here is getting quite solid. So as I say, I'm not being too fussy with ridges and lines, because obviously I want that to be there to give it some contour. There's a couple of purposely made areas where it's flat, and those will be used with trees and other scenics once I've finished and let this go off. As you can see, slowly the newspaper disappears and a landscape starts to form. The water that drips down to the bottom dries very quickly because it's got the plaster in it, and so I'm making sure I've got a good seal between the bottom of the actual landfall and the road, because I want to put a ditch in there before I finish, so it looks a little bit more authentic. So as you can see, it just smooths over, the holes start to fill in, and you get some nice looking effects. Well guys, as I hope you can see, it's starting to take effect. I managed to do the front sections across the front of the portals, which will be filled in afterwards, and this is actually quite hard already. This is a little softer. I've followed down, I've got the main contours that I'm after. Coming off down onto the main road, this bit's nice and solid. So what I'm going to do now is going to continue on out of shot, finish off, and come back when I've got the back end done, and I'll be able to give you a better view all round. So this is the final version of the initial plaster of Paris coating. I'm really pleased with the results. I hope I've managed to capture some sort of terrain idea of possible glaciers in the past coming down from their Kuns and Corries and Cirques, whatever you want to call them, coming through. This has obviously all been cut out by engineers and would have come down here originally. So I'm pretty certain with another couple of coats in certain places this will pick up quite nicely. It's gone quite rigid now, and if I come round off the tripod, I think the effect has come out better than I expected. Obviously at the moment it looks like a snowscape, but I think once the paintbrush and scenics have been on it in a few weeks' time, it should start to pick up quite nicely. The portals again, as I say, are only card at the moment, but it gives me some idea of where I've got to go to. So as I say, this is the approach to the station tunnel. Backdrop obviously finishing and going off into the distance over here. Come up to the summit, across the top. I think the contours have come quite nicely. I'm really pleased with those. And come down the road going through, and the path that's been cut around for the road. And then the entrance to the main station, and then off down to the good sidings and the rest of the loop. Again, as I say, this is drying nicely, and I think in a day's time when it's really solid, I'll then be able to start plastering in the road, preparing the ditches down the side here, finishing off ready for the wall to go round, and then eventually joining up with the end of the elevated section with the road coming down to the main station. So I hope you liked the little video today and given you some ideas. I've certainly learnt quite a bit. One thing is certainly to have some gloves. Without those, I think your hands would become really badly worn. And I think basically it's just to create something without being too smooth, without being too finished. After all, you can always fill in afterwards with some filler and more of the plaster bandage. So until the next video, I wish you all a happy new year, and I'll catch up with you very soon. Bye for now.